Patrons offer a lot more intrigue in a D&D game, for the most part, than gods. This is because they have a smaller worship or warlock base, and thus they have more direct interactions with said warlocks. Because it's packed, the player has to do something or give something up in order to facilitate that bond or agreement to receive power, tying them closer to that patron. Just a quick aside, if you look at Paladins, they're great at almost everything. They can easily get high AC, their saves are incredible. Because of their aura, they can spellcast, deal incredible damage with smites, they get a pool of healing that they don't have to use spell slots on to use, that can also deal with diseases. They have utility when dealing with, like, against effects like charm, and they just have a ton of different abilities, as well as the coolest capstone in the game, in my opinion. They have everything, but the limits of the Paladin aren't mechanical. The unbending nature of oaths limits the actions they can take because it has to be confined within what their oath is, causing them to act in a certain way that could potentially counter the party's goals or even act in favor of the villain's goals. Warlocks are something where that is a bit deficient. Like oaths, creating a pact is a potential downside. It's a restriction which they have to account for when getting power. Warlocks have the most customization in the game and potentially the best cantrip, but in terms of power as a whole class, it varies. It leaves room for you to bring stuff in. You as a DM can sort of remedy this. So a patron could potentially reward a warlock with a boon for obeying their wishes, or take away powers when they disobey. Now, this is a very fine line to walk because it has the potential to remove player agency. Some players, often the more ones who are more RP-based, would be fine with this. Making decisions have a weight when there's a cost, but you shouldn't make it like you have to do this or else you're going to lose it. It should be an idea of you can make the decision, but know either way there are going to be consequences. One to your own power, one to potentially your party. Make sure to talk with the players, make sure they're okay with this, make sure they understand what you're doing by presenting this to them. And essentially just talk to your players. Now, how does your patron communicate with the warlock player? This is, there's a ton of options for this. The first option, which many of us have seen on Critical Role, is dreams. There are a lot of options with dreams. It could be like Dalnar and the Stormlord and the Stormlord Archive, where the patron shows the player something through past events, through their own lives or elsewhere. Almost kind of like a Christmas story type thing. Or even future events. Or they could be testing the player, like with Okatoa, very cryptic. Their dreams are metaphors and things like that. You can be direct with the patron appearing to speak with them in that said dream. One time I did sort of a riddle as requests by the patrons, like puns and stuff in the dream. The player's character was short-lived, unfortunately, but it was a blast while it lasted. Regardless, this is one of the best and easiest options, that being dreams, because of how diverse it can be. And also secretive. The other players don't see these dreams. It's personal, as a patron often is or should be. Another option is just another version of dreams, which is waking visions. Sort of seeing the patron where they aren't there, having episodes in the world around them, where suddenly everything changes. It's the patron's domain. Well, the other players still see everything normally. They're freaking out while nothing else is it's like a hallucination. I watched One Night in Soho recently, and it made me think of another potential option for your patron to communicate with players through mirrors or reflective surfaces, which really emphasizes the distance of the patron, like if they're trapped or on some otherworldly plane, manifesting here but just beyond your reach. Depending on the patron, it can be a lot more direct. If it's a sentient sword, they communicate telepathically in your mind. It could be, again, cryptic, just sending like emotions to you. Like if you meet certain characters, it may already have divulged an opinion. Maybe if there is other patrons of the same creature, then it might have a bond with them, or a hatred for other sentient objects. But very base instincts, stuff like blood, lust, hate, greed, or desire. A patron is like an archmage or a lich. You might physically encounter them because they are on the same plane of existence. That way, they're much more like a quest giver. Their goals can vary greatly, of course. It could be a fetch quest to give an item to another warlock, to get an artifact or something, so you can free them, request to capture or kill people, which brings morality into question. There's a lot of ways you can put the warlock through trials with these requests and make sure they're meaningful. You want to kind of repeatedly hint at your patron's goal through these trials. There's this one webcomic, Ava's Demon, where she is linked to the spirit, which can send her stuff through this drawer, drawer embedded in her torso, which she can like put stuff in to send to her spirit, and then also get stuff back from her. There was this warlock in a campaign I played in, whose patron gave her spikes that she stuck into herself for more power. But the more spikes she had in her, she was easier to control by the patron, like Hemelargy from Mistborn. I had a warlock who would be helped out by his patron at a time of need, like invisibility spell to waste time, disguise self lasting for longer than normal, etc. Warlocks have so much flavor potential and are so interesting on so many levels as both a DM as a player, mainly a DM, because you have such a big involvement in your players' choices and actions, and really get to give them a motivation that's always constant, which is really great for players who want to have that kind of deeper experience. It's, for me, when there's a warlock in my party, it's always such a treat. It leads to so many interesting scenarios, and it's just great. I hope you got something out of this. This is Sean from Dodec Dungeon, signing off.